Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Book Banter. I'm Raina from Blue Cypress Books. And tonight I am going to be welcoming Clay McLeod Chapman to Book Banter with me. He is the author of Ghost Eaters. This is one that I was sucked in from like the first page. And I will say that I was haunted even after I put it down. And if you read the book, that will have a much better meaning for you. Clay is an author of books for kids and adults, for scripts for TV and movies and plays, I'm pretty sure. And he is, I believe, going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to click this button and welcome Clay onto the show. Hi.
Hey, we made it. We're here.
Woo! We did it. Like,
we're alive.
Congratulations on that, by the way. I mean, yes.
Totally. It is, it's funny how like, I don't know, like every day you kind of start the day off and it's kind of like, okay, I'm healthy, I'm present, like everybody, like there's just like the people kind of within my immediate proximity are healthy, like everybody's okay. Like it's the kind of the baby steps, like the kind of like let's take this slowly.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say I thank the pandemic for that, because I think pre-COVID that was something you heard. People told you to do that, but you're like, I got stuff to do, and then the pandemic happened, and then you're like, oh yes, I will. In fact, there's my circle, and the sun is shining, and this shirt fits again. Okay.
It's the total like stop and smell the flowers. I think like after 2 years of being kind of crammed in our houses, apartments, whatever, like smelling anything beyond our BO is a total boon. So yes.
It has been a while since I've thought of that sort of just musty your own house odor.
Yeah.
I also have a teenage son, so that was not good. He was we'll say that he was coming into his own during the pandemic, and the house, that was a fun thing.
Oh my God. I have two sons who are 7 and 10, and we had to create all these holidays. Like basically like, we were all stuck in our house. And like we basically were like, let's like, because we did kind of indoor trick-or-treating where like each room was its own, like you would have to knock on the door and like we would give you candy. And then like we did something called thanks eating. It's kind of like Thanksgiving, but like, like it was like pick any food, like any food you want to do, and we'll just like cook it. So it was like a bunch of like, someone wanted quesadillas, someone wants like, it would be like, it was just like no rhyme or reason, but it was just like, we're gonna eat today. Today is thanks eating.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you're giving them an opportunity because they don't get a lot of choices all the time. And you're like, yes, we will all eat quesadillas all day. That's what you're into. We got nothing going on, so here we go.
It amazes. I am actually just remembering. We created this whole mythology about it because it was like, what was Thanksgiving that year became kind of thanks eating. And we were like, the great turkey comes down the chimney and like, gives you whatever, like, you basically, if you've been a good little boy, you get to ask for any food from any country around the world and he'll deliver it. And it was like, we had a lot of cardboard. And so we made like a cardboard, I had like a turkey, like a turkey.
Oh, did you made a whole like the leaves or feathers?
Yeah, the feather things, and like a mask, and we created a turkey piñata. We did like homemade piñatas, and like I mean, it was like a whole to do. So yeah, that was our thanks eating.
I think that's amazing, and I'm super into it. And some days I feel like I wish I was at your house. We were not having quite that much fun here. We did actually. Your thanks, Miss Turkey reminded me actually this year. I was wandering around Costco and I saw this like light up tree and it's orange. I'm like, I can't how do I justify this? I need this in my life, but I also need to justify it. And so we decided that if we bought it now, which was like 3 weeks ago, we could leave it up all the way through Christmas and use it for a Christmas tree. So it's our Hallow Thanksmas tree, and it is currently up, and it is in the living room, and it will be there for at least through the end of the year.
That's amazing. It's an orange tree?
So like it's a black.
Is orange or?
No, so the tree is actually black. It has these black. So if you turn the lights off, it's just kind of this creepy Halloween black branch tree, but it has lights on it. And when you turn the lights on, the lights are orange. So I think it's supposed to be a Halloween tree, really. But I was like, I can't spend that much money for one Halloween tree. I need to make it last longer. So that is what's happening.
They are going really extreme with the Halloween decoration. We are a Halloween house. I will just admit it.
I would have guessed.
Yeah. But it is kind of funny how like the Halloween decorations pretty much stay up year round now. You know, like oh, we'll leave that spider up there, and that skeleton stays, and yeah.
We definitely have decorations that there's two categories. There are some Halloween decorations that go into a box and come out like, every October 1st. But then there's ones that you buy and you're like, that skull's going to live right there in that bookshelf. It just is there now. Maybe you move it more prominent location during Halloween, but that's about it. Yeah, we have this like beautiful black candelabra, and that was another thing. We're like, how do we justify this? Like we saw it around Halloween. We're like, well, we could just leave it up. Done. All right. It's just decorations now. I don't know if you can hear the band.
I hear some drumming.
There's a school. I live really close to a school, and during the parade season, which just kind of started, they start practicing and they go around my block.
Oh my God.
Maybe like 5 or 6 times as a practice. So I guess that's happening today.
You timed this perfectly. I didn't think there would be a marching band joining us, but that is like pretty cool in my book. So will we hear them kind of like do the rotation? Like they'll come around?
That was the first time, so they should be back. Yeah, give them a few minutes. They'll go around the block and they'll come back. So
it's amazing. Only in New Orleans. That's
only in New Orleans.
Oh my God. So I'm noticing this is your home where you are.
This is my home. Yes.
So is that right behind you a copy of Perfume?
Yes, it is. That is one of my favorite books.
That is one of my favorite books. Like I love Perfume.
I feel like Perfume is one of those great, you can tell the merit of a person by whether or not they have finished and whether or not they enjoy. Those are two things, right? Because you got to go, you got to push through it. I know there's going to be this space in the middle and you're going to be like, what's going on? Just keep going.
Yeah.
And then you're either going to love or hate it, but you have to get through it to know.
It's all about the ending, isn't it? Not to give anything away, but like
you got to get there.
Oh my God. I love that book. I read that my junior year of college, 200 years ago, I think it was. And I mean, like I was studying abroad in Ireland, and my creative writing teacher, this guy Frank Golden, he's a poet in Ireland, and he basically, he assigned these books. So like my exposure to Paul Auster, to what else? God, what else? The Butcher Boy. Who wrote Butcher Boy? Patrick McCabe, I think. Oh my God. It's definitely, I feel like it's Patrick McCabe, but I could be wrong.
It is. It is.
Okay, great. The Butcher Boy, the New York trilogy by Paul Auster, and Perfume were all such kind of fundamental texts of that year. But like Perfume was the one, like that's the one I hold on to. That's the one,
yes.
Still. Oh God, I love that book.
Yeah, I just picked it up, not this copy, but the original copy I read. I was in a secondhand bookstore and saw it on the table and went, this sounds good. And that's it. I've been in love. And now this is like my third copy because, of course, when I run across another cool cover, I have to get it.
Yeah.
Working in a secondhand bookstore, because we're still about 70% secondhand and 30% new.
Yeah.
And the working in that secondhand bookstore, you see copies come across of some of your favorite books, and you're like, this one is for me. I'll just put that in my locker. That'll be great. That's an advantage. Okay, so Leanna from the bookstore, Leanna's our manager, and she's evidently watching, probably from the bookstore. She says that you should read The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks.
Yes, that is, oh my God. That book, like there's certain books that you can reread that, like that's a return book. Like you come back to that book and, I feel like you have to read it almost like once every 5-10 years. Like it like, I feel like that book holds up. Geek Love by Catherine Dunn is another one. Like The Tin Drum by Gunter Grass. Like I feel like there are books that you just need to come back to it's almost like the older you get, you just need
to you have to do it again, because you look at it a totally different perspective. I've done that with some books. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but when it does, it's amazing.
Totally,
a book you loved, 10 years ago and love again when you read it today, that's nice.
Yeah, because you're different. You're a different person.
Yes.
And you have to kind of re-engage or re-encounter these books so that you can kind of become like, this is who I am now. And will I like The Wasp Factory now?
I tell everybody that I can't wait to be 65 and read Old Man and the Sea, because they always make you read that like in high school or something, and there's no way you're going to relate to that. I hated Ernest Hemingway for a long time because I was like, this sucks. I don't know what everybody's talking about. Because a 16-year-old does not understand what is happening. So I'm hoping in, 30 years, I will reread it and I'll be like, wow, right here. I feel that now.
You're saying that you're going to give Hemingway a second chance when, I mean, most people, God, like, if you give him one chance and he not for me, moving on, but you're going to come back. You're going to come back to Hemingway. You're going to say like, it's not one and done. It's like you're up for second chances.
Yeah. Well, I liked A Farewell to Arms. So it's like, it's not that I dislike Hemingway. It's I did for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I read some of his other stuff and I was like, oh, I get it. But there's no way. Why did they even try to have me read that when I was 16? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's short, but that's about it. So I that's why I'm saying, like, I appreciate Hemingway. I don't love Hemingway, but I do appreciate what he's doing what he was doing. And now it's genuinely a thing I'm looking forward to in my older age. So one day I'm going to get there. It's going to be great. I hope. It's worth it.
I noticed Leanna's giving some Geek Love. So I have to ask, there is, I feel like an Catherine Dunn acolyte. And I know that next week, there is a new, I hear the marching band coming around.
Yeah.
There they are, here they come. There is a new Catherine Dunn novel. And even though Catherine Dunn has passed away, they have unearthed this text, this book of hers. And I don't know. I'm scared. I'm like really kind of cautiously optimistic. Like I really want to read it, but I'm nervous because
we haven't gotten our hands on it. Oh wait, we have the Ark. Oh my gosh, you guys! I don't know who has the Ark then. Elizabeth probably. Elizabeth loved. Our owner loved Geek Love. Like she's the top fan in the store, right? And she has a story about how she broke a book club with it because for reasons she recommended it to a book club and they all read it and it did not go well. but it's not my story, so I don't know all the details. But yes. Oh, Elizabeth ran off with it. See, that makes sense.
I mean, it's amazing though, because like if that you talk about perfume being the kind of line in the sand, like I feel like geek love, people who love geek love it for life. Like they are geek lovers forever. And I feel like I'm one of those people. But people who don't respond to it, like it's kind of like we can't be friends anymore. Thank you. Like it was nice knowing you, but like we're goodbye.
Yeah. There are certain books, there's certain different things, films and stuff that kind of do that. And you're like, I've learned something about you today, and I don't know if I'm okay with it. It works both ways. Fair. I get it. If I say I love perfume or Geek Love's my favorite book, there are some people that they're like, I don't know if I'm into that. And that's okay. I'm all right. I'm okay with losing them as a friend. It's okay.
Here's your Nicholas Sparks. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful life.
Yes, this is just not what you're looking for, and that's okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about ghost eaters. So ghost eaters, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna do what the typical setup. This is what I keep being told, and I guess I agree that it's there's a drug that when you take it, you are able to see ghosts. That's the basic setup.
Yeah.
My question to you though is, when you had the idea for this book, did you approach it, because there's a lot of the psychology of addiction in it, did you approach it from that aspect, being addicted to a drug and what it does to you, or did you approach it from that, what if you could see a ghost? Was it a ghost story or an addiction story first?
It's funny. It's such a, it's an interesting question, because like, I feel like when I'm writing something, I always love to do kind of like, I love metaphor and I love when two things can become one thing. And in my mind, it's kind of like doing parallel things. I'm very eloquent tonight, forgive me. But like, it's like, take a ghost story. Like, what's a ghost story? Like a ghost story or a haunted house story. Like a haunted house story has X, Y, and Z. And then kind of over here in a separate column, be like, what is a story about addiction? What's a story about, like what's a Hubert Selby Jr. story like? Or what's a William S. Burroughs story like? Or what's a Bret Easton Ellis story like? And, kind of like doing the list of addiction tales. And then maybe a third column of like, what is a story about grief about? Like, what's a story about loss like? And like, all of a sudden kind of doing the Venn diagram of these kind of separate narratives and finding the commonalities and almost kind of like drawing a line, like a ghost story does this, but a drug story does it too. But it just, and it's like, all of a sudden kind of seeing the parallels, seeing the kind of like commonality, seeing the connective tissue between them, so that in the writing of it, in the execution of it, it is a ghost story. It is a haunted house story. It is a story about addiction. It is a story about grief. But like, they're kind of almost like it's one narrative on top of another, and that they kind of coalesce into one thing, as opposed to being just about the other. And like, you could say the same thing about like, is it a fungal story? Is it a mushroom story? And like, like I don't want to say it writes itself, but I do think that at a certain point, you like the connective tissue, the commonalities are so like, oh, it's shrooming. Oh, it's Mexican Gothic. Oh, it's like, like it's like all those things suddenly start to kind of oddly, naturally, very organically blend and meld in a way that feels, it's not forced. Like it wasn't like I got to shoehorn this ghost story into a drug story. They
no. Actually, that is hilarious because I didn't even think about it's just a gardening book. When you get to the heart of it, at the end, it's just about how to grow shrooms in your basement.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but it does have a lot of, there's another aspect of it too, which I didn't really put together until you're talking about the Venn diagram. And then I'm thinking, like, how many circles can we get? They feel louder this time.
They're going for it. They are.
They're going to be great.
I love it.
It's also like kids, like Erin is dealing with her parents, that parent like relationship too, which isn't the main focus, but it's there and it's real and it comes back, like how they relate to each other. Yeah, and I think that's another piece of this Venn diagram I hadn't thought of before. I definitely thought that, like, as a ghost story and an addiction story, I almost felt like there were some parts, some times where you could pull one away and you're reading it like if the setup is an addiction story, I'm like, cool, that's what it is. And if the setup is a ghost story, I'm like, cool, that's what it is. Right? So you did a great job, like, just melding these both together and seamlessly, like, even at some points you're like, well, which bits are real, right? Yes. What piece of it, and real to who, in what state,
I mean, I feel like the trope of a drug story, an addiction story, is that at a certain point, the reader audience is always questioning what is real and what is not. In a ghost story, you're kind of always questioning, is the ghost real, or is it, like, there's almost like a kind of psychological aspect to it. Like, is it like, are we really seeing this ghost, or is it all in, I mean, like Haunting of Hill House, like, we have always lived in the castle, like, like, are there really ghosts, or is it, are we kind of like in the kind of mental perspective of someone who is slightly askew, or, like, it's but I think that's what's so that's what's fun about kind of blurring the lines between addiction and, I mean, like, you read Burroughs, you read Junkie or Nova Express or Naked Lunch, and all of a sudden you're just like, where am I? What's going on? Like, is this real? Like, what is reality? Yeah, that's
like, do they even know? Do the characters know? Does Burroughs know? Does anyone know what we're doing? I'm not sure. No. Yeah.
Yeah. It is all a lie. Reality is a lie.
So did you write this during the pandemic? Since just based on the timeline, like when it's coming out?
Oh my God. It was my pandemic book. So Whisper Down the Lane, which was the book I wrote prior, came out in April 2021. So is that right?
Right.
Oh my God. Wait, yeah. Yes. That was 2021. So that book was in its final kind of gestational state during the kind of beginning of the pandemic. Wait, the pandemic started in 2020, right?
2020.
Yeah. So, like, that book was kind of coming to a close, and I was ramping up into writing in earnest Ghost Eaters in, like, October of 2020. God. That's when I was like, all right, we're gonna write a book. So so, like, 2021 was the zone of Ghost Eaters. It was like, we had been in COVID times, we had been stuck at home. I got COVID. My whole family got COVID in March of 2021. So like Ghost Eaters was definitely like, we've been in this for a year. Life is, life, this is what life is right now. Like I mean, in all honesty, like, we are, it felt like we were ghosts haunting our own homes at that point. So yeah.
And especially you're talking about when you guys got COVID, that was like when you were like, oh yeah, no, we can go out a little. Oh no.
Yeah. I mean,
guess not. So it's like you had some freedom, and then the world was just like, no.
Yeah.
It pulls you back.
No, we made it a year, and we were like, we're gonna see, like, there was that feeling of like, it's been a year, like the light at the end of the tunnel is spring 2021. Like, we're gonna make it, guys. We're gonna do it. Like, we're gonna be okay. And it was such a, just like, we had been so good and
slow motion.
Yeah, like like chariots of fire. Like, we're about to like make it to the end, and like, nope, you got cope. Like that, it just felt so cruel. I mean, everybody's safe and healthy in life, so like I feel like I have to couch this conversation in these terms of like, but yeah, it felt frustrating that like to have gone that far and then kind of fall on our face. But I feel like I should not talk about these things because somehow I'm going to jinx my entire family and we're going to get it again. And I don't want that.
Nope. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. So I did write down one quote from the book to ask you about it. It is in a flashback when Erin and Silas meet for the first time. And Silas says to Erin, "There's a darkness in you I bet no one else has really seen before." And what that made me wonder is how you got started writing horror. Because in that moment, she doesn't come off to me before that as particularly dark or depressed or anything. You don't just necessarily describe her that way that I remember. But Silas definitely is troubled in some ways, and he sees something in her.
Yeah.
And her writing. So, So what made you write horror, and did you ever feel that way, that you had something you weren't letting out and then did?
Man, I mean, it's interesting because like, I started writing. I started writing in like the 6th grade, and I'm originally from Virginia, and there was a playwriting competition, like a statewide playwriting contest for middle and high schoolers, and I basically I discovered my love for writing primarily through this playwriting competition, where like they select a number of writers to kind of like attend this playwriting boot camp in the summer at the local university. And every year I would just enter this contest, and pretty much from 6th grade to 12th grade, I would go back. And like, I just basically, like, that was school for me. Class was in session during the summers of just doing this playwriting intensive. And I loved it. I mean, I grew up in this program. Like, this program was my identity in so many ways. Terrible student, like, the actual school, like, I was just awful. But like in this program, like, I just kind of thrived. But I was always writing odd, it would not necessarily kind of like directly quote unquote horror, but definitely off kilter, bizarre, strange, like weird stuff, darker stuff, for sure. And sometimes it would be comedy, sometimes it would be drama, but like of an off kilter nature. And it was so funny because like people would always, like, adults would always kind of like state, like, like, are you okay? Is there something like, do you want to talk about something? Like, and I'd be like, what do you mean? And they'd be like, well, you're writing about like the themes that you're writing are just very like we're concerned. Like, my mother, God bless her, like she got a little worried. Like the like school counselors, like, like adults who are kind of gatekeepers, or those who are supposed to kind of like keep an eye on, not emotional troubles, but like just making sure like all the eggs are like getting like funneled down the conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Like, I think there was always a concern that I was an odd egg, and it never occurred to me. I mean, like, I loved horror. Like, there was probably that one babysitter who like put on that one movie that I was far too young for. Like, I would watch horror movies, but like I would write about just stuff that people would be like, like what's up with that dude? That kid's weird.
Just like there's something off with that kid.
And I don't know, like at a certain point, that kind of identity, I didn't claim it as much as it kind of just ossified around me. And like, I love horror, but I don't think I necessarily like started writing horror in any kind of direct way until I came to Quirk. And I've written 3 books for them now. I'm on, theoretically I'm on my 4th, and it's like you got to find your place on the bookshelf. And the Remaking, which was my first Quirk book, was ostensibly my seventh book out in the world, maybe 8th. And everything before that was like either horror adjacent or like bookshelf space is such a strange thing, where it's kind of like, what is, like, where do we put this? Like, do we put it in fiction? Do we put it in the, if you're so lucky to have a horror section, like, I don't know, like I slipped through the cracks, I guess, until I came to Quirk, and Quirk was like, do you want to write horror books? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's just call it, let's just do horror. And that's where I exist.
That's where you live now.
Yeah.
We actually just created a horror section even just like a few weeks ago, because we just kept getting more and more and more of it. And eventually we're like, well, this needs somewhere to be now. Like, and it's true. It's like trying to figure out where it goes. Does it go in just regular fiction? Sometimes. Does it go in like sci-fi fantasy? Sometimes. But more likely, you can pull all of that into one section. And somebody who comes in asking for that, that's going to have what they're looking for most of the time. Totally. So yeah, it's just another one of those sections that we slowly pulled together, and just like exactly like what you're saying, just sort of became its own. Now this is where you live.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things in Ghost Eaters that I did recognize, which I really liked, is that sometimes you describe even like everyday.
Did I lose you?
Using things you wouldn't typically think of to describe something just every day. And I cannot think of an exact example. I did not write that down. But I recognize that, especially early on in the book, before we really got deep into haunting and all of that. And I wonder if that's sort of a piece of like something you did when you were younger too, because like that could be just something that you take a more of a regular story, but you're describing these things in these like ways that people don't think are a regular, normal way to describe things. And now all of a sudden your mom and your teachers are like, oh, is this what he's thinking all day? Is this what's going on in there? What happened?
I mean, I don't know. As the parent of kids now, like there's just that moment of like, I'm outside of your brain, and I want to know what's going on in that brain. But there's no access to that brain. And it's so kind of like, how do you navigate this conversation to get to the information that you want, but not do it in such a way that kind of like you play your hand or you show your cards. But like, I don't know, like Ira 11 and Rosemary's Baby, I think, are like great examples of kind of the banality of horror. That horror starts in a very quiet, sedate, kind of normal place. And like the horror is there from the moment the book starts. It's just that Rosemary and the reader are playing catch up. Like by the time that they kind of like acknowledge like something's off here, something's weird, like the trap is already set and you're already kind of like in this, you know, like you're in the web. And I love that sort of stuff. Like you know, I think every horror writer at this point is like desperate to find the kind of common banal thing and like extrapolate every kind of terrifying aspect of it. So, you know, here's a like a terrifying tennis shoe. Like, you know, but for Ghost Eaters, it was like the banality of domesticity, the banality of home, like like what's the horror of home? What's the horror of, you know, like all the like just the things that feel very I don't know, like just finding those things, like the stuff that like that scares you, that like the shower scene in Psycho, like, you know, like you're, you know, like that's something that we all connect to.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I obviously have never lived before. I would like to have lived a week before it came out. Like, what was it like to take a shower before you've ever seen like knew that existed? Because I can't ever have that moment. And now for no matter what, it could be the best day on the planet. I get in the shower and there's a moment when like something really horrible could be behind the shower curtain. And I do really wonder what it was like to shower before Psycho. Like that innocent time before you knew that someone could be out there about to stab you. I relate to your book because I feel like sometimes, like, I'm not the only one thinking that almost every time I take a shower, right? Question mark? You don't need to answer that because I don't want to know. But yes, I can relate to this sort of like thinking about maybe this dark thing that's happening or the not the always the worst option. I'm a happy person, but like it's there. Yeah. It's there, you know. Yeah. It's not all flowers, it's not all roses all the time. Yeah. And if it is, they can poke you and then you get an infection and there's your horror movie.
Same with sharks. Same with like Jaws, you know, like it's you know, yeah. I just feel like...
I mean, it goes on. There's everything. Everything around you has the potential to do this. And you're right, you're creating a story off of anything. You pinch your finger in the desk drawer and now it's got an infection and what happens? I mean, go with it. Maybe it's just a short story, but you get, you know, there's a story to all of that, and that we all wander around going, oh well, it's just a, you know, it's always just a cut, and most of us it is just a cut, and then also it's a story. So
for Ghost Eaters, I wanted to do that for clear plastic tarps. Like I wanted the notion of like imagine a, you know, like when I think of the trope of a ghost is that it is a white sheet with holes cut out for its eyes. And I love that, like that kind of iconic image of a ghost, you know, it's something so familiar. But I wanted to do it with like clear plastic tarps. So it's no longer a bed sheet with holes cut through it, but it's like a transparent, translucent, like visible, like that to me was like what, you know, that is, you know, I would be so happy if the next time the reader looks at a clear plastic tarp, they'll be like, Ghost Eaters. There's a ghost behind that.
Well, I haven't seen a clear plastic tarp yet, but I'll let you know.
They're
It's
out.
definitely gonna do it now. I know. They're out there. Like I've seen them before, but not since I finished the book. So now it's a whole new world. I definitely noticed that though. So I'm glad that was like specifically on purpose, because I was like, there are quite a few people wrapped in clear plastic here.
Oh my God.
But I was like, also imagining all the ways they could have died or why that was happening was fun.
Yeah.
For me, I'm calling that fun.
My editor, I mean, at a certain point, they were all covered in clear plastic tarps. And my editor was like, dude, you have to pull back on the tarps. Like there's just too much tarps. And it was hard. It was heartbreaking to let go of them all, believe me. But she was right. I get it. But I wanted everybody to be covered in tarps.
I mean, if that was one of the big edits, it's good. You can't complain about that. But that must be one of the difficult and fun parts of an editing job, where you're like, yeah, have you noticed there's a lot of tarps?
Yeah. Noticing there's a tarp theme going on here.
Was that something you were going for? Like, you either need to write more or less of this, because I don't know why everyone's in a tarp.
I mean, for me, it was just like, what is like the question of like, what does a ghost look like in this book? And it was like, they're gonna just be people with tarps. And my editor was going, oh, okay, you know, like, yeah, I mean, you know, so well, let's work on that. Let's unpack that.
You think people are gonna get that?
No, they're tarps. You get like bed sheets with eyes. They're tarps now, and it's just like, oh, okay, maybe not.
Yeah. How about we circle back? On that. It's just stick a little pin in that and come back to it next week. How you feel? Okay, good. No, I imagine. Well, okay, I'm gonna hit you for one more little thing. You said you're in theory working on another book.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's definitely another book. That's good. And you're typing away at it day and night.
Well, you know, a book has been written. There is a manuscript that exists. It is in my editor's hands. And there's just that moment. There's the kind of liminal space between a submission and acceptance. And, you know, every writing process for me has been kind of more fraught than the last. So at this point, there's just like this feeling of like, is this the one that like I shoot myself in the foot and like it just completely collapses and like won't get like, what I'm basically saying is I'm waiting for my editor to say, yes, this is the book. You know, like at this point, it could go either way. You know, I'm at peace with it. Like it's kind of like, maybe I don't know, maybe there won't be a book. But until my editor says yes, I'm kind of in bated breath mode. So I'm like, I'm choosing to talk about it in these kind of vague terms, so that if it is not accepted, I'll be like, oh, okay, well now I've learned that this is this is the process.
Well, fingers crossed. I'm sure it's going to be amazing, and I'm sure you're going to get some tarps. But otherwise, yes. I have all the faith in the world of that. Clay, I want to thank you so much for joining me for Book Banter. It was so much fun to talk to you.
It's such a pleasure. We're perfumers. Like we're gonna be friends forever now. So
we could do this. Yeah, we can do it in real life. And next time you're in New Orleans, you know where to find me. So you got to do that.
Done.
All right, everybody, click that last link and grab it very soon. So you can grab them through our website, and we will send you a signed book plate along with your book. And everybody have a good evening. Thank you.